Everybody, I'm going to talk about some books that I've read, the first 5 financial books that I've read, and rank them from least to most favorite. I'll go over what they're about, the main lessons I've learned, and if I recommend them or not. The first book is The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. This book was made in the 20s and it's about, some of the investing and financial lessons. And this book I feel like is more for beginners. He goes over the 7 simple rules of money. The read was very boring, I have got to say, because the context of my reading this is that I've already watched basics of finances, basics of investing. I'm already a good saver, etc. So these lessons, they're very simple. Anyway, I thought the book was just a dry, boring read. The values are good, so I'll go ahead and tell you what the lessons are now. 1. Start thy purse too fattening. Save your money. Okay. 2. Control thy expenditures. Basically, don't spend more than you need to. 3. Make thy gold multiply. Invest wisely. 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. So I guess it's avoid investments that are too good to be true. 5. Make your dwelling an profitable investment. Basically own a home. 6. Ensure a future income. So protect your assets with life insurance. That's pretty good. 7. Improve thy ability to earn. So basically continue to learn new investing techniques and principles in order to grow your money. So those were the 7 principles. I didn't have to read a whole book to get those 7 lessons. So you might be like, oh my god, what the heck? This is an amazing book. How dare you? I'm good. Number 2, The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. This was a pretty interesting book. It was about the psychology of millionaires, and the author is actually an IO psychologist, so basically industrial organization or work psychology. So they're very used to examining and researching human behavior. So in this aspect, they actually were studying millionaire behaviors. And what I really liked about this book is that they definitely accounted for privilege. So people like trust fund babies, or people who are already born into wealth. Basically, they took studies of all these people and synthesized the main characteristics and behavior of millionaires. So conscientious, highly correlated to millionaires are confidence, virtue, self-control, delayed gratification, and discipline, frugality, and so much more. A lot of things are simple, but simplicity doesn't mean it's easy. So yes, it is a simple idea to save money. It's a simple idea to invest money, but how often is that really going to happen? Unfortunately, 64% of Americans find money to be a source of stress. So it's not a surprise that a lot of people don't want to deal with money or think about money sometimes. But millionaires are very conscientious and they're really goal-driven. Another great point that I really liked from this book is that income isn't wealth, right? Because if you think about it, let's say I have an income of 60K and my friend has an income of 100K. Well, if I have an income of 60K and I save about 70% of it, yeah, I'm left over $42,000. But what if my friend who has 100K loves to spend money or doesn't like to save, and then at the end of the year they're left with, I don't know, $10,000. Yeah, they're making more, but at the end of the day, I have more wealth than they do, assuming we started off at the same starting off point. Do I recommend this book? Yes. If you're looking more for a psychology of millionaires type thing, it's more about the mindset of millionaires. It's not quite going to break down these are the common things that millionaires invest in. And let's go move on to the third book. The third book is Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. He's also the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, so that's probably why his name sounds familiar. This book was made in 1998. I really enjoyed this book. Kiyosaki breaks down the difference between 4 types of people. We have on the left side, we have the employee, self-employed, business owner, and then investor. And they're placed in particular order, not just by random. On the left side is the employee and self-employee, I guess. And if you want to build wealth, you can build wealth here, but it's really difficult. Versus if you're a business owner or investor, you're a lot more likely to build wealth. And of course, you can be multiple. You can be an employee and an investor. You can be self-employed and a business. But I was self-employed and business, that's the same thing, isn't it? Can't you be self-employed and own your own business? But one of the main takeaways that I got from this book is that the difference between a business and a self-employed person is that for a self-employed person, you're always going to have to work. So I'm thinking about Cambodians, some of them, we own donut shops. So you're self-employed if you are working every single day, like my uncle, in order to run his donut shop. So versus a business owner is that if you've are able to navigate it and find people to work for you, and you just you don't have to work for your business, you can have somebody else manage it for you, you're a business owner. So while it is really cool to be self-employed, for me, I would rather be a business owner, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to travel or spend time with my family without having to, go into work. For me, when I was I invest in index funds and stocks, but I was I'm not an investor though. I'm not a multi-million investor, investing in complexes and, foreign lands. But then I stopped myself and I was no, I can identify myself as an investor, because technically I am investing, so therefore I am an investor. So it's really cool. Kiyosaki breaks down the levels of investors. Another main point Kiyosaki brings up is the difference between financial security and job security. So on the left side of the quadrant, you might have job security. I don't know if it's quite a fallacy or an illusion, but people on the left side are more concerned with job security, right? Being able to be employed the whole time by a certain employer. But sometimes employers can't promise you that. Within the last 10 years as a student, I've seen teachers being pink slipped twice already. So it's really scary, because you think, oh, government jobs are so secure and etc., but you really never know. Versus on the right side, people are really looking for, the business owners and the investors are looking for financial security. You can really be multiple, or you can start thinking about, hey, maybe I don't want to be self-employed anymore. Maybe I want to move on to the other quadrant, the other side. So I feel if you are a little bit confused about your role, or you're wanting to look forward for the next steps, this book is really great to encourage you to take the leap. So if you always wanted to be self-employed, maybe you'll take the leap from employed to self-employed. If you're done being self-employed and you're oh, this is a lot of work, or this is not the kind of work I wanted, maybe you'll take the leap to being a business owner, and then maybe you'll take the leap to being an investor. I really liked all the concepts. The next book is Unshakable by Tony Robbins. I really like him because his books combine not just investing and financial principles. He also goes and explains his story and what he does with his wealth, which is give to other people. It's just not about money, right? It's about what money brings and how we can make the world a better place with money. So this book was a lot more wholesome. It had the balance of anecdotes. It had the balance of case studies and technical, manageable, actionable items, which I love, because some books don't give you that, and it's bro, I need to know what I need to do. So for example, this book was really great about exposing 401k's fees and fees in general. Never ever will I freaking ever get an actively managed fund, because the fees eat up so much of your potential wealth. Now I know I'll be prepared that before I sign up for anything, I'm going to be looking at all of the fine print and making sure how many percent they'll be taking away. I think this is also a really great book for beginners too, because Tony Robbins goes over the market and the history of the market. In summary, I really appreciate this book. It has a great balance of psychology, personal memoir, and technical financial and investing advice. All right, the fifth and my most favorite book so far is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I know this is a very basic or classic book, and I'm sure everyone's okay, we get it. But honestly, this was my first financial book I've ever read. There's just so many great principles that were counterintuitive, and it just changed the whole game. First of all, when he was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was he had two daddies? Wow, Hawaii's very progressive back in the early 2000s. So Robert Kiyosaki has a father who is an educator. I think he's the freaking head honcho of the Board of Education in Hawaii. He has a friend, a dad, who is an investor, business person, who he learns from the rich dad, and then his biological father is the poor dad. It was a really cool story and framework, because you're constantly comparing what attitudes poor people have versus how rich people think. This was a banger. Number one, pay yourself first. You're what does that mean? I have bills, bro. You might have children. how are you supposed to pay yourself first? We're so used to being in the rat race, which he calls, like people scrambling to make money, paying other people first, and then barely having money for yourself at the very end of the day. He wants to reverse that, and the first method is paying yourself first. So that means before you even pay your rent, before you even pay your bills, you want to invest in yourself. So either by saving emergency funds, either by investing in index fund stocks, you know, your own business, you handle that first. But then in my head, I kept on thinking, well, what if you don't make enough? What if you don't have any money left over? Like, that's not good advice. To which he does address, okay, well, then you have to be more creative. You have to make more money and income. Instead of thinking, I can't afford this, you want to start changing your mindset and frame it, how can I afford this? And I was like, that's amazing. At the same time, I'm also thinking systematically too. It's sad that in a country where we're super rich in terms of like GDP, that there's so much poverty. So then I'm kind of like, well, instead of focusing on individually, like, couldn't we like change the government and like be more socialist? And then I'm like, nah, we're in America. What the like, that's gonna take forever. In the meantime, I guess I can go with this strategy. So pay yourself first means invest in yourself, invest in your savings, your own business, and then hopefully build your income so that you can do that first and then pay your bills and all that later. Another eye-opening thing too that like calls me out a little bit, just because you have degrees, a lot of like smart people tend to not be good with money, because I think it's the morality that people like associate money with, like evil, selfish, greedy, and all that. And I used to be like that too. And then the book was kind of like, nah, son, like you're just being tricked because you're like, oh, I'm above money, but you're poor now. So you're like, okay, like you can still handle money and then like, you know, use it for good. So I felt like had I not read this book, I would have been in the same predicament of Kiyosaki's biological father. This book really changed my life, like hands down. So that's why I rank it number 1. So that's it, folks. Those were the top 5 books I've read for finances. And the next books that I want to read are going to be The Psychology of Money that my friend gifted me. Thank you, Monita. And I'll probably read a book on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, you know, all that. Because, you know, maybe I'm trying to ride that wave, okay? But anyway, please leave some book recommendations down below. And stay tuned. I want to end this video with a quote from Tony Robbins: knowledge is potential power. Action is power. So yes, it is all great to read all these books, but it's even better if you act on it.